Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody. I don't have to call each other names anymore.
I know. It's a
Right
little
about
odd. We're still kind of in the.
is this real? Because man, it's really getting where it's like, is this pinch me?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know. I was trying to think about something that they've been saying lately, but I haven't spent as much time, on that as I should have, but kind of been waylaid in a sense, in a good way by lots of family things. Had
Yeah,
grandsons born kind of back to back, and we I well the personal part of the personal story too, since we've got time today anyway, is just so I at my son's request we flew out to Utah with the
right.
idea, and what he wanted was that he wanted us to babysit the newborn. Okay, now,
Okay.
as grandparents, we're like, okay, look, you're giving us a chance with this little kid
Yeah,
who's lucky to be alive, who went through a traumatic, experience when he was just days old. We want to be there with him
right.
because his wife was going to be part of a group they do this like trail running kind of ultra marathon thing. I'm still not clear exactly what they were doing, but anyway, it was something that was going to take place over several days. She was supposed to be gone from, we flew in on Wednesday. She was supposed to be gone, I think, from Thursday night through Sunday. So it was perfect. It was fine. It worked. I was going to be fine. And and then her parents, my daughter-in-law's parents, were also going to be part of this team. So that left them. It's like, yeah, can you do this? Because I had contact about something else. He says, oh yeah, I've been meaning to call you. Can you come out and babysit? And yeah, go ahead. Sure, why not? Tug at our heartstrings. Who's going
Yeah,
to turn that down?
right.
Even if it means flying nearly 2,000 miles away. But one of the reasons we do it, the other reason we can do it too, is that this Breeze Airlines, they
Hmm.
fly from Dulles to Provo direct, nonstop,
Oh
and
wow.
that and we you can get a ticket. I mean, they have various levels of service, but we buy the top tier service, which gives us everything. We spend as much on that ticket per person as we were for flying, the crazy coach on Southwest and going to Salt Lake, which is an hour, which is 45 minutes to an hour away, which makes it
Right.
harder for somebody to come get us. Lots of other complications with that. Provo, we can do a lot more things. It's just so much more convenient. We don't have to worry about, we can be at an airport in 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So we do that. So as we get there, uh, as I check in with my son eventually, he's like, oh, he says, well, one of the people on the team had tested positive for COVID, and she insists on running. Well, my daughter-in-law, she's not a germ freak. Matter of fact, her parents, when I first met them when they were getting married a few years ago, was like, we're not getting vaxxed on COVID, right?
Right.
So this is not, but having a baby that just went through a traumatic experience, they're taking precautions. They just want to make sure. So she said, "Well, I'm not gonna run that day, but I'll go on Friday." So instead of on Thursday, instead of doing this, starting the whole 4-day babysitting thing, they like, "Can you babysit so we can go on a date?"
Yeah. Yeah. It's
so,
a,
we,
it's a big thing.
so
Young parents.
yeah. So when, I mean, we're staying 45 minutes to an hour away. So, we drive up there, babysit for basically an hour, and then drive back. All right. And stuff. And sometimes we think, like, what are we doing here? But it's the family. It's our grandson.
Yeah.
So then Friday night, we're like, okay, well, she's going to have to go. My wife's going to go and she'll begin the babysitting and stay and everything like this. So then it comes up that uh, I think her sister got sick or something like that, so she wasn't going to go that day, uh, and so didn't need my wife that day. The end result was is that the only time they needed us for, they asked us for uh, to babysit during the day when they go to work, because my daughter-in-law was going to return to work for the first time since the pregnancy and everything, and or since the baby was born, and so yeah, it was fine. And the nanny wasn't available that day. Uh, so when you boil it down, we flew about 2,000 miles. I mean, with the purpose of having like a 3 or 4 day babysitting, operation that came down to a little over a day.
Yeah.
But family, you've got a big family,
Yeah.
you do things with them. So, we stayed with my brother-in-law, we did things with him. It was still
Yeah. It's
good.
always fun,
Yeah, and all that. Plus now my son, well, at least my daughter-in-law probably more so than my son, she feels guilty. So that may prove to be worth something someday.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what, so Memorial Day weekend, we get out of here, we like leave early Friday, drive all day. We get as far as we can get on Friday. We go on Saturday into the place where they have it in Glenmora, Louisiana. And then, you get there. I usually don't get there until 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And then, Sunday you get up and leave, right? And Sunday you get up and have lunch, and you got to leave. You got to come back to drive up here. So that's 38 hours in the car for about 28 hours there. That's really what it is. And but I mean, that's a great 28 hours. I wouldn't trade it. And like my kids love it, and then they're anchored in their family, and and I love all those people. So it's worth it. We do it.
Yeah, family's important. I mean, how do you put a price on being together with your family and extended family, right?
That's right. That's right.
Our lives are limited, so that enjoy the time that you have and make the most of what you have. And so, if they request it and I've got time to do it, it's
oh heck yeah, grandkids. I'll be all over that when that happens for me.
Yeah, and we experiment a little bit too, because Dulles.
Your 4 days is up, yo. You gotta go.
Well, and the thing about Breeze is that
you're turning him into a criminal.
And the thing about, we love Breeze, but there are limiting factors, and so you have to also. They fly, I think, 2 flights a day, and they're on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. So when you're planning a trip, you plan your trip based on when they are flying. It's not like you can, and you don't have those. You're just going to have a limited number of flights, so that you do this. So that's why we stayed there for a week. It just seemed to work out better. My wife was, going through all things, and then we tested something else out, because I don't know if you've ever parked at Dulles Airport.
Not in a long time.
Yeah, well, we did this on our previous trips out of Dulles, and parked in the parking garage and everything. And I'm going to tell you, so they charge you $21 a day to park in that garage, which is relatively close to the terminal, and they've got a tunnel that goes by the metro and into the terminal and all this stuff. They apparently think that virtually everybody's going to walk that walk. It's a mile or whatever it is. That's not my wife. She's not going to be doing that with luggage. Okay. So They have a shuttle, but the shuttle apparently shows up only like every 30 minutes. The first time we flew out of there, the shuttle showed up in like 5 minutes. It was just pure luck. When I returned from that trip, I'm like, where's the shuttle?
Yeah. That's one thing that's always struck me about Dulles is they assume you can make extremely long walks with luggage, which, most young people, the luggage is on a roller, but there's a lot of the flying public who cannot.
Yeah.
It's always been, it's not real. Like the expectations aren't realistic.
So what I've observed now is just basically like, if you park in the economy lot, and I have no idea what they charge for that, the shuttle bus is there like, it seems like every 15, 20 minutes, because there's like a ton of them at the terminal. But this one to the garage where you pay a premium to be in, you can't find one. It's so we actually decided to park at the Fairfield Inn at Dulles, and we did it through an app called Spot Hero, and just prepaid that thing. We show up in the morning, they tell us where to park the car, we put a little tag in the windshield or whatever, and then catch their shuttle, and in 10 minutes or whatever, we're at the airport, and reverse that when we come home. But we actually met a couple when we were leaving from Montgomery County when we were going to Dulles. They stayed there the night before. They live in Poolsville, and they were going like on a 3-week cruise. And this was like, it takes us too long to get to here from there, particularly with White's Ferry, closed.
Right.
So they opt to stay there, but then they get their parking free. Probably works out, but we wound up paying, I think, like $9 a day, for the hotel parking. I was paying 21, and I actually know when a shuttle comes. So, Dulles, you've got this all messed up with your parking garage. It's become like a little pet peeve of mine. It's like, I can't park in that garage. It's like, it just bothers the heck out of me. It's like, how do you put up a garage and charge people $21 a day and rarely ever send them a shuttle? They're paying more than your economy people who are getting more shuttles, which I know there's lots are bigger, but you should give them some premium service if they're paying a premium price in your garage. BWI does a much better. BWI sends a bus like all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I compare the two. I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? Anyway, so there's my soapbox for all of that. But this whole Breeze thing, I'm becoming an ambassador for Breeze here on the air. But it's going to allow me to probably go to Utah a lot more often because it's more economical. In the long run, and since Southwest is changing the way they operate, probably just better. I may have to use my Southwest gift cards and just fly to Arizona instead, or something like that, and then say, we'll use up our points eventually, and then not worry about Southwest that much unless we have to. All right, a lot of pontificating there, a lot of whatever it was. Before we get into the news, spring is around the corner officially next week. But we're seeing. I was thinking. It looks like we're out of the woods, though, right? The weather looks pretty good. Yeah. Never say.
Yeah. Still take a jacket when you go out at night.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a harsh winter, and it does look like it's for the most part over.
Yeah. It's getting better. I left the house this morning, and it was 48 degrees when I went to the gym, which is a heck of a lot better than 25 and 30. And stuff like that. So
the thing about it is, I think that one of the things that like I'll always remember about it is like it snowed. We got like 5 or 6 inches of snow January 3rd or so, right? And it didn't melt. So it was like that snowstorm never went away for more than a month. That snow was on us, and then about the time it all got melted, it came again, and that snow was not on us as long. But it was really only 2 snow events, and they were really not that big. The biggest people around here, the highest totals around here were less than 10 inches. But the way that the timing of them and the way that they lasted here, it made for like you were in a snow environment for 6 weeks, 7 weeks of the winter here, which is much more than we're used to.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was like we kind of had a land iceberg in our lawns because it just didn't go away.
Yeah,
it was just there, So I'm glad it looks like that we're past that point, and now I have to do the dreaded yard work, but it gets better every year. I employ my young missionaries kind of in exchange for free meals, and they like to do that. They like to get out and do some other things anyway. But the projects we've been working on for years have gradually improved as we've been cleaning the backyard, the back area. It's less to do there every year now. So it's like now we're finally getting to gain control. Maybe I can actually do the next level of that and make it look a lot better. How about your golf game? Getting out there?
So I was thinking about going yesterday, and I didn't really get through working in time. But I haven't been out there yet. I went one time. I went and swung it one time.
Well, you got plenty of time.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
Hey,
but AAU basketball starts. All the tryouts are done. The teams are picked, and we start this weekend. And once you get going with that, that's my weekends till late July.
Yeah, you've been doing that for a long time too.
Yeah, this fun keeps me young.
Okay, all right. It does, because how heavily I'm involved with these missionaries from our church.
Yeah.
I think the same thing is that I'm with all these young people frequently during the year, and all this.
Yeah.
And I don't think about how old I am and all my ailments and issues and stuff like that, because they just bring me this other level of joy and interest in
Yeah,
whatever. And
absolutely.
so you kind of forget. I think my wife complains about that a little bit at times. It's like, you're not a kid anymore. It's like, I don't know. I
You
realize,
know,
I realize
3 hours
that.
a week, a night, twice a week. I have a kid. I'm out,
Yeah,
I'm
I
out there right
realize
now.
that, we're what, over 40 years older than they are. We're basically could be their grandparents now as we're getting
Yeah,
older.
that's
But
right.
on the other hand, they are just, it's interesting to watch them even during the time that they're here in the DC area, kind of grow and mature before they go back home to their families and learn a little bit about who they are and see them kind of just grow
Right.
up. And I have all those friendships linked on Facebook and Instagram and things, they populate most of my feed. And I'm like, this morning, I'm like, wait a minute, why is she saying happy birthday to this guy? They both served in this mission. I'm like, are they dating? It's like this. We get a lot of those, but it's what this was not the case like a few weeks ago, as far as I could remember. That her post, all of a sudden, it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah. Lord moves in mysterious ways.
Yeah. Well, it's like, they tend to be usually once they do that, they make that pronouncement, that initial pronouncement. It won't be long before there's a ring on somebody's finger. There
Right.
aren't too many. There aren't too many of those that actually break up before a wedding gets announced. So it's. I'm like, okay, that's good. I'm like, we're always happy for him, and it's like, didn't see that one coming, because particularly that guy, when he was here, we knew him pretty well. Is like he had a girlfriend here. He had a girlfriend back home waiting. So I was waiting for that, and this is a completely different girl.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah. Things happen when you go away for 2 years.
that's right.
The relationships just don't necessarily just pick up, right?
That's correct.
So anyway, okay. So one of the things, so we got, part of the news, I guess, is just that. So we had Trump doing Trump things. It's like, okay, Ukraine, you're not doing what we want you to do. We're going to withhold intelligence. We're going to withhold weapons and things like this. Voila. Zelensky's like, okay, let's talk ceasefire now. Now looks like, I guess the ball's kind of in Putin's court, which I don't necessarily trust Putin, but it is progress. I mean, what am I up to now? 1,113 days. We're 3 years plus. We're almost
Right.
into the 3 years and a month. And we have talked about this before. Is like, when Trump was going to come into office, we expected movement on all these conflicts. Where Biden administration was just da, 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 da.
Right.
Trump is just like.
Do you think Kamala would have done any of this? Right? Any of it? I mean, it would have been just send them more checks, right? Because no one would have questioned the approach, and they would have had what they wanted. No one would have even given this any thought. Now you have a situation where, Zelensky has essentially said, he will do what we want him to do, and it's like Putin. If Putin starts now, right, he can probably lock in most of what he's gained. He may have to give a little bit back, but he may not care, right? Because this thing is not, he wants his little, access to the port, and he wants what he wants, right? So they have a chance to stop this, right? They have a chance. Gaza is going to change. It's not going to be the same. So is it all these big world things that were intractable problems or made worse by the Biden administration are suddenly being solved in relatively short order. Now you say, okay, there's some new ones, right? They're Canada, but it looks like Canada backed down yesterday and said they would continue to provide the power. That's about tariffs on American goods. That whole thing is Trump saying, you're not, yes, the left is always, well, we're under this UMSCA, which he negotiated, right? Trump negotiated the trade deal that we're under now. He tore up NAFTA and did his own, remember? So, why didn't he do all this then? Well, he couldn't do all this then, right? He did the deal that he could get. And so now he's saying, why are we letting you have, 250%, tariffs on dairy and 290% tariffs on chicken, right? Why can't American food be sold in Canada? Why do you have to do that? So he's going to get a fair deal. The Canadians are going to make a deal because, let's face it, they're always, we got all this oil. Like, yeah, you got no way to refine that oil. Like, we refine that oil for you. You send it all to us because you cannot refine it and we can. So, if you want to play, we can play, right? And like, they're like 1/17 of our GDP. So it's just like, we have states with bigger GDPs than Canada. So, the people are realizing that, like, what the math is here, and Trump is using Trump's special, his special powers are, figuring out ways to assert power that has never occurred to anyone else, and getting the other side to defend the 20% side of 80-20 issues, right? Like, what are they doing now? The governor of Maine, and I guess there was somebody yesterday, defending, boys and girls sports. Like, that's a loser issue. Why are you for that? What more signal do you need that the American people don't want that? That has to be worked out some other way other than boys playing against girls in sports. But they won't do it. They won't do it. They're Trump has them defending that whole speech. I saw you had on there about the speech. That whole speech was Trump laying out accomplishments he had done on 80-20 issues, right? Issues that no one's going to take any exception with.
Yeah, on Ukraine, it's interesting too, because I think part of this was that Zelensky, when Trump basically withdrew the intelligence and the weapons, we saw, he saw what happens, right? Russia's like, oh, we've got an opening, we're going in for the attack. It's not coincidence that Zelensky comes back and says, okay, because they, that's a huge hole for them. They need the U.S. They need us, as part of that. In order to keep, at least to keep the Russians at bay. And so they got a little bit of a taste of that. And that was not a good taste. So, by acceding to, to what Trump wants is really in their best interest. Once again, I will state, I am no fan of Putin. I don't trust this guy at all. And I don't know that if he agrees to a ceasefire that he will uphold his end of the bargain. But we are making progress. I am looking for progress. I'm looking for something that stops the bleeding, particularly on the side of Ukraine. Ukraine has suffered a lot, and they really need, at least at the minimum, a ceasefire, so they can kind of regroup, maybe start to rebuild, and then rethink what the future is for them and how they want to proceed going forward. And this would be an opportunity, rather than having to worry about drones and everything on both sides. I was reading something or saw something about the North Korean troops, that Russia has employed, and just kind of how one of the problems for Ukraine is that they just come in waves. They kind of have been trained, I guess, to just come at you and not think about anything. Kind of reminds me a little bit like the old Civil War days, or the old where they would just line up and they would just go, right, and they would just go at each other, and you just have line after line after line. Some get shot down, the next guy come. That's kind of apparently how North Koreans have been deployed there. Putin doesn't care about whether or not the North Koreans live or not, the soldiers. He just needed bodies to go and try to push forward, because they're not his people. He's not gonna have to worry about them. So
and he has a hard time getting people now. I mean,
right. He has a hard time getting people.
Has been sacrificed to this, and he has to admit, like, he could go nuke it and take it over tomorrow, I guess, but it would be nuked, and then he would be getting nuked, right? Because then we would have to respond. But short of that, he has to face the fact that he didn't do real well here. He got what he wanted to get. He got him a narrow little corridor, but like the idea, he was, what did he plan for, a 2-week war or something? And it's a lot longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah, and in the meantime,
my point is, though, Ukraine has some cards. You talk about the cards. They have some cards, but the cards have to be carefully played. They need to figure out what it is they can accept. What is an acceptable outcome? And they, there may be some giving back of territory, and there may not, just to stop, just because, to make things convenient or whatever. But figure out what is the truth, because right now, what are your options? Are what you trying to push them back out of the parts of Ukraine that they've held for 2.5 years? How do you propose to do that? How much will we have to add? I guess you saw that this week, the EU, or what is it, European Community or whatever it's called, so they're going to spend $1 trillion to build a standing army, to build a rival to the U.S. military. $1 trillion. These are people that they haven't ever paid their bills to NATO, right? I mean, we've let them slide the entire time, and now they're going to all pitch into a pile to build from scratch $1 trillion army. So maybe that works. Maybe that, like, the level of because you think about it, like, what's that going to be like? Who was that? Is that going to be run by a Hegseth or a Lloyd Austin? It's going to be run by Lloyd Austins and Millies and people like that, right? And how much progress will they make with the $1 trillion? What will they turn around 10 years from now? Will they be any closer to having this? And will they be happy with what they did with their $1 trillion? Right? I don't buy it. I don't think it'll ever happen.
But just the fact that they were actually announcing they're going to try to do this, I mean, after all these years, is just kind of remarkable. Once again, this is due to the Trump administration.
Right.
The second Trump administration has just been eye-opening in so many ways. Not everything has been positive, but you get developments, particularly on the world stage, which I think you and I both knew, he was going to shake things up. He kind of shook up that order, in his first term, but he was just kind of trying to get his feet wet and kind of understand how to do this, how to handle diplomacy the way he wanted to. He wasn't a politician going into the presidency the first time around. He's had, he got some experience. He had time. They put a team together. They watched Biden flail about and everything like that. And now that, I think they really came into this, election and, into this, to this whole new era, saying we have a roadmap that, we have a roadmap that we want to do here, accomplish, and we're going to take this roadmap and make this work, and we don't, and Trump doesn't really care what other people think. He's going to do what he's going to do.
Now he doesn't even have to run again.
That's right. He's not. Yeah, I know. There's always those hints every once in a while. Apparently, they say, "Oh, he might want to run again." But I think he's just going to, he's
just driving the other people nuts. He's not going to feel like doing this.
That's part of that Trump derangement syndrome. Where he's living rent free in their heads while he just toys with them. In the meantime, he just keeps, he does all these things, and he's just shaking. And that's why would the EU or whatever, say they want to commit $1 trillion to building a military force, is because they understand that, while Trump is in office, things are going to be different. Things are going to be even different than they were in his first term, radically different. And so as a result, they need to learn this. I mean, I don't think that they thought that Trump would necessarily back away from Ukraine like he did. Say, we're going to take away with military intelligence, take away the weapons and stuff like that. I think, he sent a stark signal to the EU's like, look, if you don't kind of play ball, if you don't, do what we want you to do, our support is not going to be there. You take that for granted. Sorry, that is not the case anymore. You cannot take our support on these matters for granted anymore.
Right. That's an important thing. And here's another one. So they cheated Trump out of the 2020 election. I mean, there's enough between the postal trucks and the, 119% turnout and all that kind of stuff. And the big pile of ballots that no one knew where they came from. Right. So they pulled it off. They succeeded. Right. And think about what happened if they had let Trump win, as he rightfully did. Okay. It was there was barely anyone working at the White House at the end of the first term. Right. There was kind of disorganized, chaotic. They were just, Trump was doing, running it pretty much by himself, right? With limited help. And knew what they wanted to do, but they kind of lacked direction and planning and so forth. He would be finishing up. He would have just finished up a term where he probably struggled to make it to the end of the line. Okay. Instead, he was out for 4 years, and all the best minds of government, industry, politics said, I'm going to help you. You can you figure out why yourself, but now he has, a brain trust who came in with a plan. I mean, you think about the amount of things that they're doing, and it's like each day there's a new one, like they're pacing it out there. They had a plan. On day 34, we're going to do this. On day 35, we're going to do this. Right. And they're just going through their thing, doing it. And they're doing huge things. Like they're basically shutting the Department of Education right before your eyes. They've basically shut USAID right before your eyes. They'll have to play a few things where they've already bought whatever it is. The people are already out the money. But they're basically shutting. There's no DEI in the country. Think about that. That's like, 2 months ago, DEI was entrenched, right? Now it does not exist and hasn't existed for some time. And they're just going through, sweeping out the door anybody who tries to sneak it in through another name, right? It's extraordinary what's going on. Also, when I was doing the other day, think about the media, okay? Nora O'Donnell, Lester Holt, Jim Acosta, Chuck Todd, Joy Reid, Katie Fong. You could go on and on and on. All these people have lost their jobs. The New York Times, the Washington Post are changing to more conservative or at least less crazy liberal editorial pages. The networks are retooling. I think 13 million people watched CNN's election coverage in 2020. About 570,000 watched it in 2024. That's a huge difference, right? It's just being wiped out. The legacy media is being wiped out as an arbiter of what we hear and think. It's just being obliterated. Trust the media at an all-time low. It's just stunning the amount of change and the rapidity, the velocity. It's unbelievable what's going on. If he stopped right now, he would be amongst the most consequential presidents. This term would be in history.
I'm not going to argue with you about the stolen election kind of thing like that. I'm way past that now. It's like it was a done deal, one way or the other. Biden served his term, right. And all this stuff, and because
right. I don't want to get in and undo the bills. I'm not saying right. that. I'm just saying, there's a ton of evidence out there that just at the key spots they did the key things, and it doesn't matter. They, like you say, they got away with it. So.
I didn't say they got away with it, but you said they got away with it.
I mean, they did. They did get away with it.
I'm not. Once the official numbers are in, whether or not you agree with them or not, you can't really do anything about them, right? You can't undo that. So I'm like, I live with it, and I move on. And I don't want to be like Hillary Clinton. I don't want to be like Stephanie Abrams. These people that will just whine about it for years, and I think that's. That's part of the thing. I didn't like Trump talking about it incessantly after the fact, but nevertheless, we're now in a new Trump era. He's there, he's doing things. And, when it comes to the media landscape, this has been amazing. I mean, there's no way I would have predicted that these people would have decided that it was time for them to leave, step down, or in the case of Joy Reid, her show gets canceled and whatnot. But the Wall Street Journal had an article the other day, which also shows how Hollywood has shifted this, right? I mean, so Disney owns ABC News, right? And ABC News just had a bunch of cutbacks, and as well they were cutting back, but they were writing about how they are reviving or putting on shows that are more for the Trump era, right? Duck Dynasty is coming back. Okay, I never watched Duck Dynasty. Okay, those are like your people, maybe.
They're my parish. It's up in North Caddo Parish where the guys are from.
Yeah, so they're getting another shot at it, and which is great. I mean, they had one of the most amazing enterprises that I've ever seen. I remember going to. I guess it must have been, I don't know if it was an NRA show. It was one of these exhibit things that I used to go to. It probably was NRA, but they were still in their prime. and they had a huge bus, like trailer, and it was basically the merchandise bus. And you start in one end and you go through the other, and you basically can pick out what you wanted to buy of Duck Dynasty merchandise. And I mean, they're making bank.
Oh, yeah.
They were just raking it in. The Robertsons were, this is the American way. Do it, capitalize on it. They also mentioned how ABC or Disney, also had launched a new Tim Allen show. And if it wasn't for my friend Dwight, I wouldn't have known about the show, called Shifting Gears. And the dialogue in there is all kind of vintage Tim Allen, where he throws in all those things, right, about liberals and and all this kind of stuff, and with everything else. And it's funny, but they apparently have specifically wanted that show for the Trump era, and the ratings are good. The ratings are really, really good. So they're looking for more of those types of programs, because that's what America wants. They want to watch those things, right?
Yeah.
So the liberal programming. I mean, you have the poor liberals on MSNBC. Oh, they're little crocodile tears, and this is so terrible. What's happening?
Right. I think that that came to a head right after after Trump's speech to Congress, right? Nicole Wallace said of the kid, did you see this?
Yeah.
The cancer victim kid. They made him put him to, well, I hope he doesn't have to defend the Capitol and against Trump's attackers, and I hope he doesn't go home and commit suicide like these other, and it's like, it's like, how terrible a person do you have to be that's your reaction to that? How rotten of a soul do you have to be? I mean, that's horrible.
Okay, you probably don't agree with me, but I mean, there was a time, in Nicole Wallace's previous life, where I thought she was at least a half decent person. I mean, she was working for Bush, so that also colors it a little bit. It's like, working for Bush, but her transformation now this is just outrageous what she did. I mean, she did get kind of pilloried by a lot of people for that, because they were extremely insensitive, and we weren't on last week, but because of the time change or the time difference, because I was in Utah, I did get to watch a little bit of Trump's speech, and my initial reaction really wasn't about what he was saying, but it was how the Democrats were reacting. They were holding up those little paddles, and I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, I don't understand this. Are we in an auction house or something like that? I think Mary Catherine Ham said, this was like, they're playing bingo. I mean, Rashida Tlaib had a little whiteboard. I mean, how ridiculous can you be? Look, decorum. That we should have some decorum. Both sides should have it. Okay. Joe Wilson shouted, "You lied" under Barack Obama. Marjorie Taylor Greene got into it with Obama. Okay. I don't excuse those things at all, but Al Green and the way the Democrats behaved at this speech was just uncalled for. I mean, you even had Democrats vote with Republicans to censure Al Green. Okay. Right. When I saw him waving this cane, I'm like, Fred, first I'm like, who is that old guy? What the heck is going on here? And I'm like, this is just ridiculous, like that.
Well, I will say this about that. So Al Green did not look like he was going to stop, right? It's one thing, and people say, oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, this, that, the other. Marjorie Taylor Greene said something and then shut up, right? Joe Wilson said something and then shut up. He was going to keep the shouting going all night. He was going to tell Trump was distracted, right, and couldn't give his speech. He was trying to take over the hall, right? And that's like, Reagan. You don't, the guy the free speech is determined by the guy who owns the mic, and at that point it was Trump, right? So, I think that, but I will say this, Mike Johnson, like, he went from, the gentleman is called out to the gentleman is thrown out in about 5 seconds. So maybe if Mike Johnson takes a deep breath and says, Representative Green, you've had your say, sit down, we need to have a speech. And if he persists, I thought Mike was a little quick on the trigger. I will say that.
Well, that's interesting, because he's a Louisiana boy, and I loved it.
Shreveport boy. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he was a little quick, I guess in the heat of the moment, I think Johnson looked at the situation and is trying to figure out, what do we do to quell this? Is because as you said, it didn't look like Green was going to go away anytime soon, because he was still kind of waving that, he was still doing that, and he was getting some attention for it. I think the overall thing that Johnson did by removing him from the chamber was the appropriate thing in the end, because I just don't know, when Green was going to stop. And I almost think that Green was goading them. I dare you to take action.
Right. I think that there was some. That's why I get it, but I mean, I think if Mike gives him 5 seconds to rethink, I don't know. Maybe his whole plan was to get thrown out.
Maybe that would have been a little bit better, but
I mean, it's a minor. This is venial sin we're talking, not a mortal.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him for making it in, because he had to make it in, and you can't. And what Green is hoping for there is that others jump in, right? He's not the only hothead on that side. And so then you get 5 or 10 of them, you're going to really throw out half the Democrats who bothered to show up, right? So it's a performative thing, and everybody tries to outdo the previous one. And so it's kind of gotten to be a pageant of ridiculousness, And I will say this: I mean, they can say what they want, but yes, we have had some people who shouted out stuff they shouldn't have shouted out. But like the wearing stuff and the dramatic, I walked out, I couldn't take any more press conferences in which they all seem to have a script because they all said the exact same words in the same order. That comes from their side, that we're not performative. If people get mad, they get mad. It's not scripted. It's not like, at 8:14 when he says this, we're all going to jump up and get mad, and it's a lot of the things that they're doing. It's like, they're making these weird videos, the one where they all looked at the camera and all said, "Oh, shizzle," or whatever, and then went into whatever it was. It's like, first of all, the part of America that's not voting for you right now is not appreciative of the first word out of your mouth being a swear word, right? That doesn't make me respond better to your message. Does it you? Are you more favorable to somebody that opens up with a cuss word? No, right? Most normal people, it's like, it may be level. It may not make any difference, but it doesn't. I don't know anybody, it improves the chances they will take your side to start out by cussing at them, right? But they all made these identical things. And then the senators all made these identical videos of what they were outraged about, right? And then Rosa DeLauro put out whatever, just go online and find it. It's indescribable. She was talking about being, on the appropriations committee, and like, we don't seek the bag, we are the bag, right? And it's bizarre, and it's like some kind of rap tune or something. And I mean, it's but it's like someone's told them, make these cute videos, and everybody say the same thing. And I mean, like the one with the cuss word, like they had Mark Warner do that. I've never heard Mark Warner say a cuss word, right? A lot of those guys, you can easily see where in a private conversation they would say cuss words, right? But Mark Warner just strikes me as the kind of guy, he wouldn't do that. He's just kind of square, But here he is, because the party said this was a good idea, that they're doing it. It's like, I don't really understand. Did they have those meetings after the election where they said, what should we do differently to keep from losing again? Because to me, it hasn't changed. It's like, coordinate Trump hatred. Just say how much you hate Trump every day. Just call him weird names and say he's Putin's puppet or whatever every day. That was the strategy before. It's the strategy now, and it looks like the strategy going forward.
Yeah, I mean, something needs to change though for the future State of the Union type of things. Is that we've got this last performance by the Democrats. They shouldn't be allowed to do that again. It was just kind of ridiculous, to have them do that. I mean, there are other liberals that called them out for that too. I mean, it was.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm fine with them doing it because, like, look at the response. Even their side is like, you guys are idiots.
Yeah. Well, do you think they'd learn anything from it? Probably not.
No, they keep doing it, right? We'll get that 60 senators, and this thing will go smooth as glass. You know, I mean, the thing it's like the popularity of the Democrat Party is down to like 21%. I mean, they're collapsing. And it's what's his name? Van Jones?
Van Jones, infamous Van Jones.
Yeah, he's like, they don't know what to do. None of them know what to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. You got Van Jones, you got James Carville, you got all of these people, Axelrod. They were like, the party's got a problem.
Yeah.
And here they are. So what is it now? 4 months after the election, roughly. They still can't figure out what went wrong and how to put themselves back on a course correct and do something to prepare, to take back the House. They want to get things, take control of some of the levers, in 2026. But they're not doing anything that would lead them to get there. And as you mentioned, the cuss words. I mean, they've also been criticized for being the potty mouth party, right? And it's like that, and that doesn't. Who are you winning? Who are you trying to convince with that? It was like,
right.
This is Mark Warner. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the guy is pretty square. He's not LBJ. LBJ was known for throwing these cuss words out right and left. That was part. And that was
would have been natural coming from LBJ, but it's not natural coming from Mark Warner. It's like, don't put those words in his mouth.
It's like, and Mark Warner probably felt uncomfortable doing it too, right? I mean, it's probably not something he wanted to do. That's just not part of his image and part of his normal persona. So the Democrats have just, they've been upending things, trying to find their way. But this also goes back. I mean, Trump is driving them crazy. He's living in their heads, and they can't figure out. So they get nasty. As I said, put down. So I'll always go back to the Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high. That's not happening anymore. I think there was some Democrat or some liberal that threw that out the window, that specifically mentioned that and said, we're not doing that. And so that whole thing just comes back. I like to use it because I just think where is it that
when did you go high? I missed that. I went right on by
because I missed it.
But the point is they are getting much more angry and bitter, and they're trying to kill Trump, right? They busted somebody in the Capitol. Somebody got all the way into the Capitol the other day when Trump was there with a gun. How did they get? There's 10 guys guarding the door. You've been in the Capitol, you've been in those buildings. There's you put your stuff down, you go through the belt, and they're all patting people down, and all that stuff. And they were right in. How'd somebody get a gun in there? What's going on there? I mean, I think Trump better get control of Capitol Police. Run, but who runs it, right? Is y'all's guy, Manger, right? That used to be the police chief in
Montgomery County. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the Capitol Police. I don't think that they're. It's just I don't think they were worth much. They haven't really been not an effective force at all. So the other thing that's kind of become obviously big news are tariffs. You mentioned a little bit of that earlier too. Trump. Look, I'm not a tariff guy. But I understand and I can see some of the effectiveness of how Trump uses this as a negotiating tool. And you kind of mentioned that. I mean, he has been able to be fairly effective with that. My fear with this is just that you have to use this in a calculated manner. You can't just beat people over the head with a tariff and say, "Oh, you're doing this, I'm doing this," and then just keep escalating, and then nobody really wins that. But so far, for the most part, they seem to be doing their job. I just want to make sure that Trump and his team, you just use any further tariffs judiciously. I mean, the markets, they're not the economy. The economy is not the market. That's a fairly famous thing. But they do react to this kind of news, and they look at forward-looking news. What they think is going to happen. If they think that tariffs are going to raise costs to the American consumer as well as to the manufacturers and things like that, then that becomes a problem because they're still trying to tamp down inflation. I think part of it is that Trump also wants to, besides trying to create a more level playing field, he wants to kind of see some, what we would call reshoring of jobs into America. But that gets to be tricky to an extent that it generally cost, we pay some pretty good wages to our people. Whereas if you're going into China, Vietnam, India, Pakistan, Mexico, their wages are not equivalent to ours. So the costs tend to be lower and things like that. So there are some things that they have to kind of overcome. But, I'm willing to sit here and watch this. I wasn't really keen on when Trump said, there may be a disruption. I was like, yeah, there was a disruption. Whatever gains I had in my bank, in my stock account, are back to square one.
Disrupted.
Easy. I mean, look, Elon Musk. I mean, the stock went from like $248 a share on election day to like $448 after the election. I think yesterday was like 222 or something like that. So he's lost a lot of money. What I do have a bone to pick with the media, though. They talk about how much money he's lost, but I think they need to say how much money has he lost since since election day. If you go back to election day, is he underwater since then? Because he really had outsized gains on paper post election. Then this has been this massive correction because of the things that they've been doing. The market doesn't like some of the things they're doing, so they've been wiping out value of Tesla as well as a bunch of other stocks. But Elon is still doing fine. I mean, he's still the world's richest man. It's not like he's going to the poorhouse. But I do have a problem when the media talks about these huge drops, in what he's worth. I'm like, yeah, but it grew to this ridiculous sum. He's only now kind of back, or maybe just a little bit below where he was back in November. This is not something that Elon's worrying about.
Right. So a few things there on the tariffs. So there's a lot of wait and see. So the first term they did this, and wages were grew at 2.5 times the rate of inflation. So you can't say that it failed us, right? People our age, like we have been educated in the free market movement, right? Both of us kind of at the knee, right? That tariffs are bad. It's protection. It drives up costs, limits competition, innovation, so forth. It's better to just income tax, right? Just pay for our government ourselves. Well, that we did that because after World War II, we were basically the only ones left with any money. So we said, okay, we will pay for our government and we'll spend the money. We'll help rebuild Europe and so forth. And so we can't really charge them tariffs because they're flat on their back, right? So now they're not flat on their back, so the equation has changed. So Trump is saying, can we offload some of what we're paying in income taxes? This is, he's kind of moving toward a consumption tax. You pay according to what you buy, which, has some goods and bads to that too. How far can he really push the egg in that direction in 4 years remains to be seen. How big a role will tariffs play? I think for the most part, like the Canada and Mexico, he's using them to bring about policy changes, right? Things that he thinks that are unfair to us, like, the tariffs on the border with Canada, the, dairy, chicken, the things that are in the top 100 miles of the U.S. If you go across the U.S. border, draw a line 100 miles inland all the way across, right? What's up there in that top 100 miles? Dairy, chicken, things that you don't need a lot of land. I mean, you don't need you're not farming, you're not growing crops that far north, right? So that's what they do is dairy farms. That's the kind of farms you can operate in that kind of terrain, that kind of area. So those are the ones that the Canadians fight the hardest to keep out. So he's, somehow they got to square that up, and they will. And I think the Canadians understand that they need us a whole lot more than we need them, and I think plays another big part in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of that. It's just that they complain when Mexico and Canada complain about that, and they threaten these other tariffs, but really, the U.S. still holds more of the playing cards on this, right? That they still can kind of control all of this, and it's generally working. And yes,
he's telling the multinationals get around the tariff, make your stuff in the U.S. and like a Honda and a bunch of other people have already announced new plants that they were going to build elsewhere to sell into the United States, that they're going to make stuff in the United States get around the tariffs.
Yeah, I'm going to take the wait and see attitude on this round of tariffs and everything that he's doing here to see if it comes to fruition in terms of, are we going to get, billions and billions and billions? I mean, we're having some things going on, obviously, of investment in the U.S. Will this bring in more money to the U.S. Treasury coffers? I don't know, but we'll wait and see.
Right.
And hopefully we don't go into the recession, which Trump, at least at the first glance, did not rule out. And stock market.
Yeah, I think it's 1981.
Yeah.
Right. It's the year Reagan baptized the economy. He held it under the water, counted to 3, let us up, and then he let us up. And when we were up, we were stronger.
Yeah. So, and if these things work out like Trump has said that they would, this would be a massive reordering of how the economy goes. I think it was Charlie Cook said that, Trump is, some poll, I don't even know what poll he was quoting. He's like -11 on the economy right now because people are reading the headline numbers. They're seeing the stock market go down and stuff like that. So they don't.
There's new numbers, right? Gas prices are down, inflation's down, cost of eggs is down.
Yeah.
So that's Trump, first thing Trump always does is get the gas prices down. OPEC, he's got OPEC drilling more. He's got Europe making deals. He's reopening us, drill. So gas prices are coming down. When gas prices come down, food prices come down, travel goes up, people start spending more money, and the economy grows by private means. And, it's happening again. It's not magic, but it seems to be the Democrats.
There's a lot to the economy, and we'll just have to see how each of these aspects of the economy do as these things kind of sink in. But economists are getting kind of whiplash on tariffs. It's kind of funny to watch. They say one thing and then they have to backtrack or do whatever. So it's kind of an interesting time that we have. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. So take us out.
Let me see. Look at our little list. Mark Carney, PM of Canada. More of same, right?
Well, yeah, he probably is not going to be there very long, right? I mean,
right. Elections in October. Puliev should win.
Yeah, and I think the Conservatives will win that.
Puliev he's in an interesting situation because he is sort of Trumpian in how he operates, but he cannot express any liking of Trump or it will hurt him electorally. So he's sort of got to dance on the head of a pin. Lee Zeldin pulling back the Biden climate, the gold bars out the door. That's a great thing. This guy Khalil will be deported, right? Because you don't have to go to court and prove it. If the government thinks he's promoting terrorism, out the door he goes. Ruth Marcus, I was talking earlier. Ruth Marcus, another one who's out the door. Trump bought a Tesla and made all the liberals mad. DC removed the Black Lives Matter plaza, which tells me the significance of that to me is they appear concerned about home rule, right? That's the kind of move she made it. She didn't really put up a lot of squawk. She's just like, okay. So I think someone said to her, if you want to still be called mayor instead of, city functionary or something, you need to do what we say, right? Because we're not putting up with it. And we have the votes to end home rule in the district. So I think that they, I think the district is duly chastised and trying to get back in people's good favor.
Yeah, I think they're spending $610,000 or something like that to tear, because they actually have to tear it up. It's not just like this painted. They did this whole thing, and apparently, according to there was a report that Bowser was encouraged by the White House to do something about this.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I think all she had to do is see what Trump's been doing, and kind of like you said, it's like, yeah, we want to maintain independence in the sense that we can be, and we better follow along because, I remember my first trip when after that first came up, was erected. I'm like, what are they doing down here? You know, so it's good to see that be gone. I'm happy to see that go. It doesn't need to be here it doesn't need to be in the District of Columbia at all.
Right. I mean, it's divisive, right?
Yeah, it is very divisive.
You got to record. Welcome. Everybody's welcome. Everybody
Yeah.
should be welcome.
All right. I'll say one thing before I do my close. It's like Ovechkin. Does he get to Gretzky's record before the season ends, or getting close?
Oh, that's right. It is getting close. That's right. I guess I read today in the paper that they've arranged it where the Joe Beninati, who's been their play-by-play guy for 30 years or more, will get to make the call, even if it's on one of the network games. They will have him do it. So,
and I've heard that Gretzky's attended several games to watch this as he gets closer and closer.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to throw this in there just because, if there is anybody who's got Washington's heart, particularly with hockey fans, it's Alex Ovechkin. Not just for chasing and maybe breaking Gretzky's record, but for really being a stand-up guy. And he's doing this year. I mean, he's 39 years old, right? And he missed like 5 weeks, and I think it came out to about 17 or 18 games a season with a broken leg, and he comes back, and he still might yet do it. They're running out of games, but he could still do it, and that would be an amazing feat. So,
where Gretzky stays when he comes to watch, right? The White House. Yeah, he does. He's a big old Trump man.
All right, enough of that. All right, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we will see you again next week.